Hey everyone, so I'm going to be talking today about the Neutropenic Diet. So the purpose of this diet is to limit the amount of bacteria and other microorganisms ingested with food intake. It is designed for immunocompromised patients, and those may include patients with cancer, specifically those post-transplant, those receiving chemotherapy, and those that are about to receive a bone marrow transplant. It may also include patients being treated for HIV and AIDS, organ transplant patients, and then patients experiencing neutropenia. So neutropenia defined is an absolute neutrophil count, which is a blood test. This determines the body's ability to fight off infections, and the count would be less than 500 cells per millimeter cubes to be defined as neutropenic. So the list of foods to avoid and foods to eat is a little extensive just because it gives the patients a variety of options. So we're going to start with dairy and cheeses. So foods patients are allowed to eat would include pasteurized milk and milk products, as that decreases the amount of microorganisms within the milk product, commercially packaged cheeses, pasteurized cottage cheese, and processed cheese. Foods that should be avoided include unpasteurized raw milk and milk products, yogurt and yogurt products with live and active cultures, cheeses with molds such as blue and gorgonzola, and the Mexican-style cheeses like queso fresco, and then cheeses containing peppers. For vegetables and fruits, this is a topic that was recently updated. Prior, it was vegetables, unless they were cooked, frozen, or canned, they were not allowed to be ingested. But now many sources and many hospitals are allowing patients to ingest fresh and raw vegetables as long as they are thoroughly cleaned. So as part of this thorough washing process, someone else besides the patient experiencing neutropenia should be doing the cleaning of the produce. Even when whenever the produce is packaged, such as prepackaged salads, those should still be cleaned and rinsed, and then it's not recommended to use commercial rinses when washing produce. In addition to fresh produce, canned and frozen fruit and fruit juices are allowed, and so are dried fruits. So unwashed raw vegetables, herbs, and fruits should not be ingested. Foods from salad bars should not be, just because it allows other exposure from others, and germs can kind of congregate around that area. Fresh sauerkraut, stir-fried vegetables, unpasteurized vegetable and fruit juices, sprouts, and then pre-cut fresh fruits are not allowed. For nuts and fats, foods that are allowed to be ingested include canned and roasted nuts, nuts and baked goods, commercial peanut butter, oil and shortening, refrigerated lard, margarine, or butter, commercial mayonnaise or salad dressings, cream cheese, and sour cream. And then foods under this category that should be avoided include raw nuts and freshly made peanut butter, roasted nuts in a shell, because the shell can contain bacteria and microorganisms, and so that the shell should be avoided. Avocado dressings, fresh salad dressing with aged cheese, raw eggs, or fresh herbs. So for breads and grains, foods that are allowed to be ingested included commercial breads, bagels, pancakes, waffles, and rolls, potato chips, corn chips, tortillas, crackers, popcorn, cooked pasta, rice, and other grains like quinoa and millet, cereals that are ready to eat. And then I put a star next to the cereals and popcorn because it's recommended that patients with neutropenia should not be sharing a bag or a box with others to avoid germs being spread through someone sticking their hand in a bag and then eating it and then sticking, just because it can allow germs to be introduced to the food item. So foods that should be avoided include raw grain products, bread, rolls, and cereals with raw nuts, bakery breads, cakes, and bakery breads, cakes, donuts, and muffins, potato macaroni salads, and then raw oats. For meat and meat substitutes, foods that are allowed include well-cooked canned meats, canned tuna or chicken, cooked beans and legumes, dried beans, well-cooked eggs, vacuum-packed lunch meats, cooked tofu, and for the tofu, it should be aseptically packaged, shelf-stable, and pasteurized. So foods that should be avoided include raw, undercooked meat, fish, and poultry, stir-fried foods, cold cuts from the deli counter, cold meat and poultry, raw, undercooked eggs, and that would include eggs with runny yolks, hard salami in the natural casing, pickled fish, smoked salmon, and lox, sushi, raw oysters and clams, and then temp products. So for beverages, foods that are allowed to be ingested include tap water, commercial bottled water, that includes distilled and natural, all canned, bottled, and powdered beverages, instant brewed tea and coffee, cold brewed tea made with boiling water, brewed herbal teas using commercially packaged tea bags. One thing that should be taken care of is making sure that the coffee machine that's being used is normally cleaned, because sometimes bacteria and other microorganisms can congregate in a coffee machine. So just care should be taken whenever maintaining a coffee machine if a patient is going to be ingesting coffee. Foods that should be avoided include well water, unless it is tested yearly and found to be safe, cold brewed tea made with warm or cold water sun tea, eggnog, fresh apple cider, homemade lemonade, spring water, and unpasteurized beer. For desserts, foods that are allowed to be ingested include cakes, pies, and cookies, baked custard, pudding, and gelatin, refrigerated cream-filled desserts, candy, chocolate, commercial ice cream, sorbet, and ice cream bars and popsicles. Those that should be avoided include any desserts with raw nuts, soft ice cream, frozen yogurt from the machine, just because the machine can contain, again, microorganisms, non-commercial homemade ice cream or sorbet, cream-filled pastries that are not refrigerated, unbaked cookie dough as it may have salmonella, cream custard-filled donuts. Other foods that are allowed to be eaten include salt, sugar, and pepper applied after cooking from individual packets. All other herbs and seasonings should be added during cooking. Jam, jellies, and syrups. Chewing gum is okay. Pasteurized honey and syrup. And then other condiments, as long as they are refrigerated after opening, that would include ketchup, mustard, mayo, relish. And then, again, pickles and olives are okay. Foods to avoid would include raw unpasteurized honey, spices, herbs, seasonings added after cooking, home canned goods, brewer's yeast if eaten uncooked, hollandaise sauce, and then non-canned pickles or kosher pickles. Other considerations when dealing with patients with neutropenia is all the food safety guidelines that we had learned when preparing for the Serve Safe exam, but that includes avoiding cross-contamination between ready-to-eat foods and then those that are uncooked, washing hands often when preparing and cooking foods, using clean surfaces and cleaning utensils often, cooking to the safe internal temperatures, storing foods properly, making sure that if there is raw meat or poultry, that it's stored below ready-to-eat foods, checking expiration dates when you're in the store buying foods, and then again, whenever it's at home in the refrigerator, making sure that the patient is not eating expired food, reheating all leftovers, hot dogs, and deli meats to the appropriate internal temperature, and then following the golden rule of when in doubt, throw it out. So the diet longevity. This diet can be followed for as long as needed. For an allogenic transplant patient, It is recommended to follow this diet until all immunosuppressive therapy is discontinued, and that would include prednisone and cyclosporin. For an autologous transplant, it's recommended to follow this for the first 3 months following the transplant. And for patients undergoing chemotherapy or radiation, the patient should consult with a physician regarding when for the diet to be discontinued. So expectations, whenever a patient is first told that they should follow this diet, they may feel limited at first on what they're allowed to eat, and maybe they might feel confused unless they're provided with a thorough education and counseling on what is allowed to be ingested versus what isn't. And they might have a lot of questions regarding this as well. So some challenges they may experience include, because for instance, the vegetables and fruits, if they're going to be eaten raw, they should be prepared by someone else. So they're going to need a support system to help in preparing all this food. Additionally, patients with neutropenia should not go out in public or eat out whenever it's a very busy time, just because whenever there's more crowds, there's more risk of transferring germs and microorganisms. So during busy times, they might be limited and may feel like they're missing out. So another challenge may be the food preparation and cooking techniques, making sure that food's thoroughly cooked, following all the serve-safe techniques we had learned. And then in addition, patients with cancer may be experiencing side effects from their treatment, and this may include a list of things, not limited, but it may include nausea and vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, fatigue, mouth dryness, sore throat, and mouth sores, appetite changes, taste and smell changes, and dysphagia. And so this may play into effect the types of foods that they want to eat, not only the foods that they are allowed to eat. And this is my works cited, so I hope you guys took something away from this presentation and learned a little bit more about the neutropenic diet. Thank you.